The situation in South Asian country Bangladesh presents a complex narrative, one that requires a thorough understanding before deciding whether to support or oppose the current developments. To comprehend what's happening, it's essential to look back at the nation's history and the evolution of its political and economic landscape. Shiekh Hasina, an ousted prime minister, narrowly avoided the August 15, 1975 massacre, which killed all of her family members, including her father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangladesh's founder. She was abroad at the time with his sister and thus managed to survive. After the killings, she spent 6 years in exile in her neighboring country, India. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Hasina rejuvenated her father's party, the Awami League, which played an important role in toppling Mohammad Ershad's military government in 1990. By 1996, under her leadership, the Awami League had beaten Khaleda Zia's Bangladesh Nationalist Party, crowning Hasina Prime Minister for the first time. She returned to power in 2009, following a round decade of absence. Over the next 15 years, Hasina led Bangladesh's considerable economic development, pulling millions out of poverty. Her administration gained international praise for resettling millions of Rohingya refugees from Myanmar and establishing a war crimes tribunal to redress the atrocities of the 1970s. She has won consecutive elections, the most recent of which occurred in January. However, on August 5th, all she had crafted appeared to collapse unexpectedly. The once powerful Prime Minister of Bangladesh was forced to resign and flee the nation. She is currently in India, reportedly seeking asylum in a third country. What caused the collapse of one of Bangladesh's most powerful leaders in recent years? The story of Bangladesh starts with Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, father of Sheikh Hasina, widely known as Bangabandhu or the father of the nation, was a prominent leader who envisioned building a Sonar Bangla, a nation free from exploitation. His dream was to establish a socialist society in Bangladesh. However, since 2009, under the leadership of Sheikh Hasina, his daughter, the ruling Awami League has transformed Bangladesh into a neoliberal economy, often showcased as a model for neoliberal economy in South Asia. Pertinently, the shift enables Hasina to preside over a thriving economy that tripled during her tenure, from $102 billion in 2009 to $437 billion in 2023, making Bangladesh the second largest economy in South Asia after India. In 2023, the country had the highest per capita GDP in all of South Asia, at $2,529. More importantly, she witnessed the poverty rate fall from 44% in 1991 to 18.7% in 2022. While the economy has seen significant growth, witnessing a 188% increase from 2009 to 2024, and the country has seen sustained economic progress with large increases in GDP per capita and major improvements in social metrics. According to the World Bank, poverty rates have fallen from 11.8% in 2010 to 5.0% in 2022, based on the international poverty level of $2.15 per day. But the benefits of this growth have not been equitably distributed. Bangladesh has become the fourth largest rice producer, the second largest jute producer, and a significant player in the global market for various agricultural products. The country also boasts being the fifth largest internet user in the Asia-Pacific region and is moving towards a cashless economy, with e-commerce reaching $260 million last year. However, this neoliberal transformation has brought about increased inequality. The economic growth primarily benefited the rich and capitalists, while the poor saw little improvement in their lives. Absolute poverty may have decreased from 41% to 21%, but relative poverty has grown, widening the gap between the rich and the poor. It can be estimated that the top 5% of households now control 30% of the nation's wealth, while the bottom 50% possesses only 20%. Additionally, Bangladesh's tax system is regressive, with the poor and middle class bearing a higher tax burden compared to the wealthy, who often move their money to offshore accounts. Bangladesh was the most liberal regime in South Asia. However, this liberalization primarily benefits the wealthy and capitalists. Her government offers extensive legal protections for foreign investments, including fiscal incentives, tax breaks, concessions on machinery imports, an unrestricted exit policy, and full repatriation of dividends and capital upon exit. Additionally, the government is establishing 100 special economic zones where a one-stop service was supposed to provide for business owners. Resentment grew during the 2020 pandemic, which put a significant strain on household budgets. Bangladesh, which is heavily reliant on its textile industry, witnessed a dramatic fall in garment orders, resulting in the unemployment of approximately 1 million workers, 1/4 of the sector's workforce. The situation was aggravated by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which resulted in considerable increases in petroleum prices. Bangladesh, which heavily subsidies fuel costs, was pressured to reduce these subsidies by multilateral institutions. This decline resulted in higher pricing for fuel-dependent goods and services like energy, food, transit, and consumables. Furthermore, a drop in remittances, which are critical for balancing the trade deficit and maintaining foreign exchange reserves, has driven inflation. Confronted with a growing financial crisis, the government sought $4.5 billion in loans from the IMF in 2022 to address its economic challenges. The protesters' will to resist state violence was bolstered by such economic situation. Many of the college and university students who participated in the protests were discouraged by the declining job chances in the private sector, which is mostly dominated by the textile industry, which accounts for 80% of the country's exports. Despite its important contribution to GDP, the textile industry cannot accommodate the hundreds of fresh graduates that enter the labor market each year. Although the sector employs around 4 million people, the majority of them are women, accounting for 80% of the workforce. As a result, public sector positions became more desirable. However, obtaining these jobs frequently necessitated significant political ties and allegiance to the ruling party. On 15 July 2024, students were protesting against the reintroduction of a quota that reserves 30% of government positions for children of independence war veterans, which they claim benefits supporters of the ruling party. The government abolished this quota in reaction to major student demonstrations in 2018. Following the submission of a written appeal by a group of war veterans' relatives, the Bangladesh High Court reinstated the 30% quota system at the end of June. Shiekh Hasina misinterpreted the students' outrage and overestimated her political opponents. She insulted the protesters by referring to them as Razakars, a term used to describe those who supported Pakistani troops during the Liberation War, exacerbating the situation. She also committed the classic mistake of authoritarian dictators by employing excessive force to quell the protesters, utilizing both police and Awami League activists. This sparked deadly battles in July, killing over 200 people, the majority of whom were demonstrators, and injuring numerous police officers. Following the initial protests, the Bangladesh Supreme Court cut the quota system for independence fighter descendants to 5%, representing a significant victory for the students. They continued to demonstrate, demanding Hasina's resignation and accountability for their friends' murders. On August 4th, new protests occurred, and the Awami League organized counter-protests. Dhaka, Bangladesh's capital, which has a population of 10 million people, witnessed violent clashes between students supported by the BNP and Jamaat and government forces. More than 100 individuals were killed on a single day of violence. The authorities blocked communication and imposed a curfew, while students urged for additional protests. By August 5th, it was evident that Hasina's position had significantly deteriorated. The military promised to maintain its constitutional duties, but refused to implement the curfew. The army chief informed Hasina that the military was unable to maintain the curfew. Hasina resigned in the afternoon, realizing the gravity of her situation, and fled to India.